Genshin Impact players are very unhappy with Dehya. Genshin Impact's most controversial new character is nearly unplayable. Fix Dehya comments on Reddit. Wow, let's see what all the fuss is about. Dawn over the sand.
Dehya, can the wall really keep the sandstorms out?
Is that Nahida?
She never meant for it to keep anything out.
Whoa.
Don't you think Sumeru City's a bit far, Dehya? She'll get homesick. Besides, who knows how the people in the rainforest will treat her?
Yo, this is like an anime. Or an animated novel?
Can't you let us in?
If that's a thing.
No, entry's prohibited.
What would you call this art
Sandstorm is
style?
raging, and we have a child with us.
You hard of hearing, no means no.
Who is that? Wait, is that Dehya?
Come on. This way, quick. Easy now.
No.
Watch your step.
Wait a second.
Don't worry. If they do find you, I'll handle it.
Who? Who is she helping?
Relax. Just trust the Dendro Archon. Things are different now.
Whatever you say. But what are you planning with all that Mora? Isn't that like your whole life savings?
You'll see when we get there.
All right, we'll take good care of the girl. Your generous donation will be used to provide for the desert orphans. I'll need a name for the fund.
What? Her life savings?
How about
For this girl that she
the Wall of
found?
Hope?
The Wall of
That wall
Hope?
was never meant for keeping things out. It was for protection.
I just got
I
goosebumps.
hope the kids can forget about all the sandstorms and have a chance at a real life.
What? That was so wholesome. Wow. Now that we've seen that and learned about how she saved this little girl and donated her life savings to help her and those in need, that was just absolutely wholesome. But now we have the character demo, Dehya, Fiery Lioness. Let's take a look.
Every merc knows the rules. You don't steal food from a wolf's jaws.
These videos are really loud.
Time for talks over.
Boring conversation anyway.
Yo! Whoa! What is this? Yo! This is so freaking cool! Oh my gosh, this metal is everything! Huge fan of metalcore, hardcore, rock, you name it over here. Dehya, the Flame
I've warned you
Mane!
before. Keep your hands off Aru Village.
Ah, Dehya. The green-eyed
Dehya.
wolf answers to no one.
Am I pronouncing her name wrong? Yo! Look at that great sword! But then she switches to her fist? Wow! That was so
I
cool!
want to help you, but first you gotta back down.
Time
Oh,
for
man.
talks over.
I would run if I were you.
Conversation anyway.
Oh, I love her design. Oh my Archon. Yo, I don't know if you can see this, but I have goosebumps. Yo, this is so freaking cool. She's just wailing on him. Candace? What? Candace?
He's a guest, Candace. We were just sparring.
Is that right?
Yo, this is so cool.
I do apologize. Please come with me.
Candace is in a good mood. You're off the hook. Remember what I told you. Final warning.
No way.
Even a wolf had better avoid lions and
Yo, that was so freaking cool. I just have to say, I love her design. I love her animations. I love the music behind it. Her trailer reminds me of the Wanderer trailer. I don't know. I'm excited. So this is technically my first collected miscellany video. So I don't really know how it's going to be. However, be on the lookout for a video where I watch all of the miscellanies. Passion of the Burning Sands.
Anyone who wanders the world will tell you that there's nothing like a dependable travel companion to make the journey easier and safer. Especially if it's someone like Dia, a mercenary from Sumeru. Though she may see herself as just one among many, she is no ordinary mercenary. Her sharp mind, bravery, and honesty are rare qualities that truly make her a rose among thorns.
Got a job for me?
Vision, Pyro, Constellation, Montichora?
Dia has a wealth of experience under her belt and outstanding combat capabilities. She effortlessly combines swordsmanship, hand-to-hand combat, and the power of her pyrovision in battle, as she skillfully completes an eclectic range of jobs while keeping her client protected. By choosing the right moment to act, risks can be avoided and tasks completed more efficiently.
I haven't been here yet.
Placing Dia in your party increases the movement speed of your own party members between the daytime hours of 6 a.m. to 6 p.m.
What?
This talent does not take effect in domains, trounce domains, or the Spiral Abyss. Dia's normal attack uses both her claymore and her fists to combo up to 4 strikes that deal physical damage to enemies. Using her charged attack, Dia drains stamina over time,
just like Beidou.
Continuous rapid slashes, finishing with an especially powerful slash. Dia's elemental skill has different effects depending on the present combat situation. When there is no fiery sanctum field created by Dia herself currently present in combat, her elemental skill will cast Indomitable Flame, dealing AoE pyro damage, and creating a fiery sanctum field. If a fiery sanctum field created by Dia is currently present in combat, her elemental skill will unleash Ranging Flame, which performs a leaping attack that deals AoE pyro damage, before recreating the fiery sanctum field at her new position.
That looks
cool. A
cool.
field created in this way will inherit the remaining duration of the previous field.
Oh man!
Flame can be used only once, within a single fiery sanctum field's duration. When an enemy within a fiery sanctum field takes damage, the field will unleash a coordinated attack, dealing AoE pyro damage to them based on Dia's attack and max HP. This effect can be triggered once per set time period.
I feel like they're moving really fast.
Active characters within the fiery sanctum field gain increased resistance to interruption. When characters in the field take damage, a portion of that damage will be redirected into Redmane's blood. Dia will then take this damage after a time. When the redirected damage stored by Redmane's blood reaches or exceeds a certain percentage of Dia's max HP, no further damage will be redirected. Only one fiery sanctum, created by Dia herself, can exist at a time. After unlocking the talent Stalwart and True, when her HP falls below a certain amount, Dia recovers a percentage of her max HP. Then continues to recover a portion of max HP at regular intervals for a set duration.
That is so cool!
This effect can be triggered once per set time period.
Why is Xingqiu using that sword? Whoa! See, that looks so cool! How is she weak?
When Dia casts her elemental burst, she unleashes her burning rage, casts her unwieldy blade aside, and enters the blazing lioness state, increasing her resistance to interruption. In this state, Dia automatically unleashes a series of Flame Mane's fists, dealing pyro damage. When the duration ends, she executes an incineration drive, dealing AoE pyro damage.
See, that is so cool.
All damage dealt by Flame Mane's fists and incineration drive is based on Dia's attack and max HP. Also, while in this state, Dia will be unable to use her elemental skill or perform normal, charged, or plunging attacks.
So would you want to use artifacts that boost her attack and HP?
Will be replaced by Roaring Barrage. Using Roaring Barrage shortly after each Flame Mane's fist will increase the attack speed of the next Flame Mane's fist.
Yo, that's so cool!
If a fiery sanctum field created by Dia's own elemental skill exists when she unleashes her elemental burst, Dia will retrieve it, then recreate the field once Blazing Lioness's duration expires.
What?
The recreated field will inherit the remaining duration of the retrieved field. After unlocking the talent Unstinting Succor, for a short period after Dia retrieves a Fiery Sanctum field using Molten Inferno Ranging Flame or Leonine Bite, she will take decreased damage when absorbing damage from Redmane's blood. This effect can be triggered once per set time period. Additionally, for a short period after Dia unleashes Molten Inferno Indomitable Flame, she will grant all party members the Gold Forged Form state.
What?
This state will further increase characters' resistance to interruption when they are within a Fiery Sanctum field.
See, that is
This
so
state
useful.
Can be triggered once per set time period. Although her reputation as the Flame Main has spread far and wide, Dia has never aspired to fame. Rather, her focus is on consistently completing each job entrusted to her and on protecting those around her. Dia's combat strategy is centered around her elemental skill. She starts by using it to create a Fiery Sanctum, which assists teammates in combat by redirecting damage away from them and providing coordinated attacks.
So imagine her on
At
the same
an
team with
opportune
Bennett.
moment, She uses Ranging Flame to deal another bout of AoE pyro damage to enemies. When energy is full,
Bennett!
Dia unleashes her elemental burst and enters the Blazing Lioness
wish I
state.
had Kazuha.
In this state, she uses Roaring Barrage to increase the attack speed of Flame Main's fist, before finishing with an Incineration Drive, overpowering her foes with her Flaming Lioness Claws. Collecting payments and completing commissions is a mercenary's bread and butter, but the commissions undertaken by mercenaries differ from those handled by adventurers. Mercenary commissions are more commercial in nature, and the tasks involved are more varied. Many criminals, heroes, and other larger-than-life figures emerge from this trade as the euphoria of strength and success goes to their heads. But not so with Dia, who knows that delusions of grandeur only make surviving in the treacherous mercenary world all the more difficult.
Wow.
As someone who began life in the desert, Dia has been confronted with issues of belief and forced to make difficult decisions on many occasions. She may wear a stern gaze, but she treats others with fairness and generosity. I would even say that she, of all mercenaries, is a pioneer of living a genuine life, attuned to the realities of the world around her.
Aww. Wow. I am excited to really get a grasp on the combat system. I've already spent more than 20 wishes trying to get Dea, still free to play. Unfortunately, I haven't got her yet. I think my pity's at 75. I know that Shenhe is around the corner. So I decided as bonus content for this video that I should just look up a video on why people think Dea is bad. This may determine if I will try and pull for her still.
Recently, there's been a lot of talk of Dea being the worst character in the game and being quite literally unplayable, so I figured that I would make this video covering how bad or good Dea is and can be, as I got a lot of time to play her before she came out on the media server, trying out many different teams, trying to make her work as much as possible, and break down my thoughts on this character, how bad she is overall, and if she can be functional or usable in certain teams, if she is a character that interests you. And so because of that, I don't want to waste any time. I want to start by talking about what her kit does, which will sort of explain a few problems of her kit, but do keep in mind that this video isn't made as like a doom posting. There is a silver lining here. There are some teams where she can be functional, but overall, there are a lot of parts of her kit that can feel underwhelming. While I will cover her kit in more depth in my complete guide coming out next, the main things you need to know are the following. Her elemental skill is a pyro field that you place on the ground, similar to Albedo's, which will deal AoE pyro damage alongside your active character's attacks after your Dea places it down. This field will last for 12 seconds and it has a 20-second cooldown, which means it has 8 seconds of downtime, which is the same as Dory's burst, making it not the greatest uptime for a passive source of elemental application. Now, with that said, the downtime isn't the biggest weakness of this ability, as you can make rotations around it. What is the biggest weakness is the fact that you can only apply pyro once every 2.5 seconds. You are sort of imposed an internal cooldown of how fast you can apply pyro, as you can only trigger this Fiery Sanctum effect, this coordinated pyro damage, once every 2.5 seconds. And for reference, a character like Thoma, whose burst will unleash waves of pyro damage from off-field constantly, will do so once every second, and not once every 2.5 like Dea. Because of this, her pyro application application is not the greatest. This doesn't mean there aren't uses for it, it just means that in many teams that would revolve around fast pyro application, like even for example a Burgeon team, while Dia can still be a usable option, she definitely will feel underwhelming as the pyro application is not as fast as you would
look at those
have hoped.
numbers.
A character like Toma will pretty much always just be better in these teams, especially when you consider the fact that with Burgeon in particular, even if you amass a ton of Dendro cores and then use pyro to pop all of them at once, which may make you think like, oh, okay, it's fine if my pyro is late as long as I'm hitting all the cores, even if I'm not applying pyro that fast. The way Burgeon works is if you proc all the cores at once, only 2 of them are going to be dealing damage to any given enemy. So if you amass too many Dendro cores and you aren't applying pyro fast enough, you are just missing out on a ton of free damage because you don't have enough pyro. On top of that, stacking Elemental Mastery over HP and attack, which she scales on, feels counterintuitive, so Burgeon's not my favorite for her. Also, the way she burgeons is just usually inconsistent, especially if there's cores everywhere. And yeah, you can circumvent this by running her as the last slot in a Hyper Bloom team, but obviously there's way better slots, like genuinely there's a better slot of like any element, but it can be functional to get some excess cores that your Kuki may be missing, so I did want to at least mention it. Last thing to note about her skill before we move on to her very unique burst, which we'll cover, is to emphasize how it gives you defensive utility and how I believe this is a big part of her kit. While this may be me coping, I do think it's important to note that her skill will give you resistance interruption as well as damage mitigation when you're inside of its field. In fact, you'll gain around 50% damage mitigation as scales up on your level for a certain amount of damage, which scales on your HP, will also give you resistance interruption. This means that it can act as a pseudo shield, allowing you to charge shot on a character like Ganyu without being interrupted for a few hits. On top of that, the damage mitigation is nice to ensure your character stays alive, so the defensive utility, and I want to make this clear, is nice. It's good for quality of life and it's good in certain teams like the Ganyu one we mentioned, and we'll cover more a bit later, but it isn't enough to justify running the character like just for that, as there's better characters like Zhongli, Xingqiu, or even just a healer that can give you more damage and also more utility, but it's a nice passive, a nice quality of life thing that makes her usable in certain teams and more convenient in others, despite the little damage her skill will be dealing, generally speaking. I believe its damage is so low because it's designed as more of a defensive ability, which in my opinion isn't the best thing, but it can be nice, as I said. Now, what is a bit more chaotic than her skill is actually her elemental burst. Her elemental burst is a very weird ability. Dia will enter a state similar to other characters that are like hyper carries, like Ito, Sino, or Xiao, where you will infuse her damage with pyro, and she'll basically just be punching enemies while she's on field. The problem with this ability though is that it only lasts 4 seconds. It has a 18-second cooldown and lasts for 4 seconds, and the damage that you're doing inside of it is considered burst damage. What this means is that in order to use this burst efficiently, you're going to be building your entire character around this burst in order for it to deal damage, and then you're only dealing damage for 4 seconds, which is oftentimes not ideal. In fact, while there are cases where this can be okay, like for example a mono pyro team, overall it's just not great damage. What I mean by this is the following. If you're using her burst without any buffs, as you can see here, it's just bad. Like straight up, the damage you're doing with no buffs is just not good, to where your burst won't be worth using.
I feel like that's pretty high to run her
with buff characters, you're using her in like a hyper carry team, like the one you're seeing right now, the damage is more okay, but it's worse than pretty much any other hyper carry in the game and just is not a great option. The one redeeming factor, which I mentioned, is going to be in a mono pyro team where she has an okay but replaceable role. It is a functional team, which I believe is important. That means that you can play her if you just like her, but is not a recommended pull, not an efficient character to use. The reason for that is the following. A mono pyro team, while I believe is pretty underrated, is just not meta defining. You're using Xiangling, Bennett, and Kazuha, 3 of the best units in the game, like genuinely all of them are top 10 or top 5, and then the last slot there can be literally any unit in the game, with a Hydra character usually being favored, but you can run a mono pyro team with Dia or Xinyan. The thing is, while a mono pyro team, even with Xinyan, is underrated in my opinion, and definitely functional, Dia does not seem to be a significant upgrade to Xinyan, being honestly around the same level, despite her being a 5-star character. What that means is that she has a functional team, but you're going to be forced to use some of the strongest units in the game just to make it work, as without it, in a non-mono pyro team, playing her as a hyper carry really did not feel amazing. As you can see from the footage, I low-key struggled to clear a Ruin Guard, even with high investment. With that said though, this video is not made to Doompost. I do have to reiterate that while her burst only has 4 seconds, the damage it can deal in a mono pyro team is decent because you're buffing your damage with Bennett and Kazuha, and you can also generate some pyro particles passively, around 5 energy per rotation for your Xiangling and other characters. You can also get the pyro resonance if you're only running one other pyro character, and you have nice passives like self-healing, but this has a 20-second cooldown for who knows what reason. I have to reiterate that she is extremely replaceable. Like again, you can use Xinyan in this team, or you can use someone better like any Hydra option, and while you may be thinking, okay, well, why can't I use Dia with someone like Xingqiu or Yelan or Beidou? Well, her burst doesn't do normal attacks. Her burst is just burst damage, and while Raiden Shogun can be used with Xingqiu or Yelan, Dia just can't. You use Yelan's burst, you use Xingqiu's burst, you go to Dia, use her burst, and nothing happens. None of the rain swords are shot because her burst isn't normal attacking. It's really unfortunate, but it just works that way.
Are you
because
serious?
Of that, an unironically
That's
viable team, which I'll cover
me.
in my guide, is using a C6 Bennett and then just using your Dia without her burst, auto-attacking, doing like these normal pyro attacks with a Xingqiu supporting you. Another example of a functional team is just using Dia on a Favonius weapon, a Tenacity of the Millith set, and for the fact that she gives you resistance to interruption, as well as being a pyro character for the pyro resonance. But in a team like this one, similarly to the mono pyro team, it's going to be your other 3 characters doing everything, and she will just provide you with slight buffs, making her obviously very replaceable, but technically functional. Have a functional team if you want to just use her, as I mentioned earlier. And so because of that, as a limited banner, genuinely speaking, if you're free to play or care about your Primogems, I wouldn't recommend pulling for her, at least as of right now. There might be future characters that give her good synergy, future artifact sets, weapons that buff her, whatever, but as of right now, she definitely isn't worth your Primogems, as even in a mono pyro team where, as I said, she is okay, and as you can see from the footage in the background, she is functional, which I believe is a better word to use than okay. She is replaceable and there are better options, but if you just like her and want to use her, this can be a team for you. Now, with that said, a last redeeming factor of this character is this resistance to interruption that you gain to any party member when your skill is on field. What this means is in a team comp like a Ganyu Melt team where you're running her with Nahida and Bennett, Dia can be a viable last slot that actually has her quote-unquote niche where she can work. In fact, while I still believe there are better Melt teams for Ganyu, and Zhongli, for example, will typically be better, Zhongli can make it to where your rotation is tighter, it's more difficult to play, and you can't really use your Ganyu's burst.
Only character I have
Dia,
out of these,
you actually will benefit from the Pyro Resonance, the Tenacity of the Millith set, a Favonius weapon, and also extra Pyro application from your elemental skill, which allows for a more comfy rotation, at least from my testing as of right now, and will allow you to use your burst and still usually be able to melt and burn at the same time and get all the melts on your charge shots on Ganyu. Because of that, this seems to be one team where Dia can actually be used, and a preferred option to Thoma, which usually is just not the case. So that's a nice thing if you want to use Dia. The fact that she can use the Tenacity of the Millith set with her elemental skill and a Favonius weapon for energy if you want are definitely some important things to keep in mind if you want to use this character. Also, it's important to note that Dia's elemental skill, giving you that resistance interruption, will make it to where your Ganyu, as you can see, can tank hits while charge shotting, similarly to as if she were shielded, at least for the duration of a few attacks, alongside the extra bit of pyro application. And Dia's extra bit of pyro application will also allow you to use your burst on Ganyu at times, which is something you wouldn't do in a Melt Ganyu team with Zhongli and Nahida, so that's another positive to keep in mind. With that said though, her kit overall doesn't feel too cohesive. Like, her burst really is only 4 seconds long and also will remove the resistance interruption from your skill because it like picks up your skill, which is really weird. And so if you're building just for your burst and stacking burst damage with like the emblem set, then you lose out on a lot of value from your skill. You don't get Millith, and then if you do Millith and maximize your skill, then you're not using your burst. It's a bit incoherent and it might require some further testing, but at least as of right now, it does seem like her kit is, generally speaking, for most players, not worth pulling on a limited banner. Pretty underwhelming, and honestly, she is disappointing overall. I'm recording this part a bit later, so excuse the difference in voice because I just woke up, but the purpose of this video is to basically make clear 2 things. One, Dia is disappointing, both as a limited character and as a standard one. Her damage is not as high as it should be, as someone who genuinely loves this character, like design-wise. With that said, I do want to make it clear that yes, you can use her. She's a standard character, a lot of people are going to end up getting her, and yeah, there are teams like Mono Pyro or Ganyu Melt or others that we'll cover in my guide coming out soon, where she can be functional and the team will function. Just do keep in mind that oftentimes the other characters will be carrying, like as we covered already, Xiangling Kazuha Bennett will be Xiangling Kazuha Bennett, even if the last slot is no one, but Dia has some synergy there, being Pyro and getting the buffs from the other characters. She's not completely useless, but she's definitely one of the worst 5-stars we've ever gotten, so keep that in mind. I'm trying to be as like nuanced and reasonable as possible here. Use her if you like her, but not recommended to spend your Primogems on. And so yeah, that's all I wanted to cover in this video. Stay tuned for my Dia guide coming out probably tomorrow. And with all that being said, hope this video was helpful, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.
So I want to thank Xiox for this video. It was actually incredibly informative. Looks like I'm going to wait on pulling her. I hope you all enjoyed watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.